If you've ever been at the wheel of a racing boat trimmed to perfection, you'll understand why there'll always be men and women prepared to do anything for that rare privilege of competing in a big ocean race. The Round Britain event, for instance, the America's Cup, the Sydney Hobart Classic, the Fastnet, or other such top ocean races. The toughest and most eventful of them all is undoubtedly the Whitbread Round the World race, which has been run every 4 years since 1973. It's the ultimate test for men and equipment, with all types of unpredictable weather and all kinds of hardship. 27,000 miles from the British naval base of Portsmouth to the Cape of Good Hope. Then across the Pacific, round Cape Horn, and through the Atlantic back to Portsmouth. The Dutch have a reputation to defend in this race, since it was a Dutchman, Connie van Rietschoten, who won the previous 2 races, the first on line honours. He won his second one, the last Whitbread, with a maxi also named Flyer, not only on line honours, but also on overall handicap, an extraordinary achievement.
It's run over the side without any warning, and when you're not clipped on.
This is ocean yachtsman Dirk Nutter. Like most other skippers, he couldn't hope to participate in this race without a sponsor. He searched for 2 years until he was fortunate enough to get the Dutch Philips concern interested. This large multinational electronics company saw the value of encouraging such human virtues as team spirit, inventiveness, and individual courage. And they knew Dirk Nutter's credentials. An honorable place in the second Whitbread race, first place in the Rotterdam-New York Atlantic race, and winner of the Round Britain race. Why was Philips interested in sponsoring a top racing boat? The answer is simple. This type of event was bound to appeal to the management because it involved enterprise, guts, and endurance. The same features that have made Philips into what it is today. Philips began in 1891 manufacturing light bulbs. Soon the factory produced radio valves, then entire radio sets, followed by hi-fi, TV, and video equipment. Always in the forefront of electronic development, Philips invented the audio cassette, the laser vision disc, the compact disc, the company is in telecommunication and data systems, ranging from telephone switches, word processors and dictation equipment, offers computer systems with voice and data transmission by optic fiber, as well as in large communication systems. Philips developed medical diagnostic equipment, which can do more than man has ever expected from a machine. In-house scientific research has prompted the development of testing and measuring equipment for its own needs. Nowadays, this kind of apparatus is also being sold to industries. Industrial automation is a major company business activity, both for its own needs and that of others. At present, Philips is a worldwide concern, with production and commercial facilities in over 60 countries and a total turnover of more than 60 billion guilders. At one end, the Philips products range includes equipment based on spearpoint technology. At the other, it enhances the quality of daily living with well-designed, simple and reliable household goods, such as coffee makers, toasters, cookers and hairdryers, while half of the world's males shaving electrically use a Philips shaver. In view of all this, it seemed a logical decision for the Philips management to support a Dutch entry in this global Whitbread race as a symbol of Dutch technical prowess. Under skipper Nauta, the ship was to fly the Philips flag on the world's 7 seas, and the boat was to be named Philips Innovator, since innovation is the key element which keeps Philips at the top of the World Industrial League. It was decided that Philips Innovator was to have an aluminium hull, to be built in the Frisian town of Hinderlopen at the aluboat shipyards, who specialize in that material. The designer chosen for the job was Rolf Vrolik. You can see him here on the left. The man in the middle is Henk Bornemann, owner of the shipyard. Vrolik's claim to fame is to have built several boats that were successful in the Admiral's Cup race. Philips Innovator was to be a sloop, fractionally rigged, which means that the Genoa's sail does not reach the top of the mast. She would be just over 19 meters overall, with a 28-meter mast and up to 450 square meters of sail, including the spinnaker. The boat would have a dead weight of 21 tons, which would place her in the Sea Handicap Division. In races of this type with different kinds of boat competing, all entries are given a handicap, a formula, the IOR, which is based on various dimensions, such as hull size, keel weight, engine weight, rig size, and sail area. On these data, a time correction factor is calculated, which gives every competitor an equal chance. So it can happen that the first boat over the finishing line is by no means the winner, since the handicap is the decisive factor. Philips Innovator is built upside down. The first milestone, therefore, is the turning of the hull. From this moment, the normal position, one should hope. Philips Innovator wouldn't have lived up to her proud name if she hadn't carried the most advanced electronic gear, including a Magnavox satellite navigator, an AP navigator, a radio transmitter with telex, a weather fax, a sailing computer, and various other instruments that tell the crew about heeling angle, wind force, and even the tension on the rigging. An electric power is always in short supply on yachts. Philips engineers designed special energy-saving light fixtures. The power itself was generated by a 6-cylinder, 118-horsepower marine engine installed by that other famous Dutch industry, DAF. On the household side, the crew were given a portable compact disc player, Skymasters, the Philips version of stereo pocket radio, rechargeable cordless filoshaves and pages, while Skipper Nada was to use a Philips pocket memo for his logbook. Boats would be unthinkable without paint, both for beauty and protection. This is where the Dutch firm of Sikkens came in, who developed a special protective paint for the race and at the same time gave the hull a magnificent coat of graded blue. By this time, all was ready for launching, with the Dutch Minister of Transport and Public Works, Mrs. Smit-Kroes, performing the traditional baptism, wishing her behouden vaart, a safe voyage. But, as you can see, she had to overcome some resistance before she managed this.
Het mag hard, hè?
Kom maar.
Ik doop u, Philips, Innovator. En de... Oh!
The sponsor, officials, guests, press and spectators turn up in large numbers to celebrate the occasion. The next stage was stepping the mast, a piece of precision work. Finally, all kitted out and spick and span, Philips Innovator was put through her paces. Skipper Nata sailed her over a distance of over 25,000 miles in trials and racing events. He said, "You need about a year to iron out the wrinkles when you're dealing with a specially designed boat like this." Nata followed the discovery route of Christopher Columbus from Spain to Santo Domingo. He took part in the SORC races off the coast of Florida, where he pitted his boat against some of his future Whitbread competitors. He participated in the Cars Week and took part in the famous heavy weather Fastnet race. Of course, Philips Innovator was shown to all Philips establishments and their clients wherever she went. In Portugal, for example, Philips organized a sailing contest together with the Yacht Club of Lisbon, where high government officials attended. Philips Innovator was also presented in France, Spain and the United States, and of course in Holland itself and Belgium. For the benefit of the Dutch and Belgian public, a race was organized off the coast near The Hague, together with another Dutch entry and one from Belgium. The local and international press were invited aboard to get their sea legs, and Philips Innovator even served as a location for a popular TV program. It was all hard work. Details on the boat's performance were minutely recorded and were to result in a number of alterations and improvements. The overall balance between sail area and displacement was improved by changing both mast and keel, not by any means an exceptional occurrence where such ocean races are concerned. As the starting date approached, it was all hands on deck for Philips. All around the world, arrangements were checked and double-checked, logistical support organized, guest list drawn up, public relations programs established. Crew preparations also moved into top gear. Sails were inspected, food supplies were stowed, electric equipment was checked, crew members briefed, all with close support from Philips. Portsmouth, home of the Royal Naval Sailing Association, played host to the international sailing world. Skipper Nutter surveyed the assembled fleet and predicted that the winner would emerge from the Sea Division, his own.
We won them.
Last-minute changes by the sailmakers are checked at sea, just to make sure everything will be in the best condition possible. The three other boats in the same handicap class were the French entry L'Esprit d'Equipe, a boat that had sailed the Whitbread once before, but withdrew because of mast problems, now fitted with a new stern, keel and mast. Fazer Finland, a contender Nutter had met during trial runs, and the Spanish entry Fortuna Light. Then there were the 7 Maxis, always an impressive sight with their 16 to 22 member crews. Among them, 2 New Zealanders, the NZI Enterprise and Peter Blake's Lion New Zealand. Also, the UBS Switzerland, with a very experienced skipper Pierre Fellman, the Atlantic Privateer, the Norske Data GB, the Côte d'Or, a Belgium entry skippered by the Frenchman Eric Taberly, and the Drum. Drum had made the headlines when a keel broke off and caused it to capsize during the Fastnet race. And finally, the D Division boats, the smallest in the running. Equity and Law, Rukkenau TriStar, another Belgian entry with skipper Staff Fuslas, SAS Bayer Viking, and Shadow of Switzerland. September 28, 1985. They were off. The waters between Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight were crowded with hundreds of well-wishers boats, causing hazardous situations for the 15 Whitbread contenders. The first mishap occurred within minutes of the start. The Rukkenau TriStar tore a spinnaker. Now it was the real thing. Crossing the line at Portsmouth was like cutting an umbilical cord. They're on their own now, crews and boats. With the land behind them, these 15 boats are like 15 planets, self-contained, their crew members being utterly dependent on one another for their safety, their lives, and the success of their enterprise. And all that for the full distance separating them from Cape Town, 7,000 miles. As Skipper Nata wrote in his logbook, "Playing time is over. I appointed 2 watchers and 2 crew members as watch captains. Sailing round the clock means that you have to delegate. In fact, the ship will be in their hands for 16 hours. Also, we never sailed with so much weight on board. A minimum of over 1,500 kilograms for the first leg, food, clothing for all weather conditions, a full set of sails, a heavy-duty sewing machine for the sailmaker, bottles of gas, extra safety equipment, diesel fuel for the generator, etc." This first leg gives variable types of weather. On the way to Cape Town, two tactical barriers have to be tackled: the Azores High and the Doldrums, the area just north of the equator where any ship can lose valuable time because of lack of wind. Once through the Doldrums, it means southeast trade winds beating all the way to Cape Town. During the first couple of days, with poor visibility, Nata averages 200 miles per 24 hours with winds blowing over the deck at 10 to 20 knots. At day 6, after 1,500 nautical miles, Phillips Innovator has one maxi behind and two within reach. Phaser has to put in at Las Palmas for emergency repairs. The Phillips Innovator's crew is praying for more wind. The prayers are answered with unexpectedly strong trade winds, which give the ship its record speed so far, 19.8 knots, which increases the daily average from 250 to 273 miles. What is to be done in the Doldrums area? Take an easterly course right through the middle of it, or go diagonally with the risk of long windless periods and of losing valuable sailing time? By this time, Phillips Innovator is in #1 position on handicap. She enters the Doldrums on an almost southerly course, while the Maxis favor the easterly course and are gaining considerably. Being in the Doldrums, it's impossible to alter the course even slightly to the east. His course gives Nata 12 hours of no wind at all, while his direct competitors, following along the same track but some distance behind, do not encounter this absolute calm. All in all, a frustrating time. On coming out of the Doldrums, Phaser and L'Esprit have gained, putting Phillips Innovator in 3rd position on handicap. On that very large ocean, Phillips Innovator manages to find the Isle of Ascension right on her course. She has to tack around it. Although the easterly ships have more and better winds, Nata remains convinced that his original decision not to follow the rump line to Cape Town is the right one. He is supported in this by his weather charts. Consequently, he avoids the heaviest storms and sails south along the edges of the high-pressure area, waiting for the wind to turn more westerly towards Cape Town. Indeed, the Maxis run straight into a very heavy depression. NZI has trouble with her mast. Atlantic Privateer loses hers altogether. Drum and Côte d'Or have serious delaminating problems. Meanwhile, handicap positions change considerably. 60 miles off the finishing line, Philip's Innovator is met by a helicopter, the first sign of civilization since Portsmouth, and just in time to witness another sail change. Then, with 20 miles to go, the wind drops like a curtain. Listening in on the radio, says Nauta, we heard Phaser talking to the racing officials as she finished. We still had 15 miles to go and 7 hours to finish on handicap. We were sweating it out, but in the end, we had stayed well within the time period.
Give us a spring quickly.
Upon arrival, Dirk Nauta has almost equaled Connie van Rietschoten's record time in the previous race, and now occupies a solid second place on overall handicap after the French op L'Esprit d'équipe.
Why not in the locker? No, you want some locker? No. Clearance for aiming for tomorrow. Okay. Will you give it in, please? Okay, thank you.
After a couple of days' rest, there is work to do. All equipment is checked, a maintenance program started, and there are even replacements like the boom, which has already done over 30,000 miles of sailing. Also, the physical condition of the crew members gets ample attention of the ship's doctor. There is, of course, also time for rest and play. Like the sporty match against a well-known marathon runner. A comparable distance for ship and man. Who is to win, man or machine? If you're in doubt, man was just beaten by machine.
Goodbye, Speedy Keith. Goodbye, Speedy Keith. Wonderful having you here. Lots of love and safe down home. See you again, we hope. Goodbye, Phillips Innovator.
December 4, the fleet sets out to sea again for the second leg. First following the coastline, then rounding the Cape of Good Hope. Turning his back on the African coast, Skipper Nutter sets his course southwards. I wanted to go south as quickly as possible instead of east, he said. There are two principles of sailing this leg. One, the shortest line to New Zealand, closest to the Antarctic, or two, making use of the winds, which, in the southern hemisphere, go around the depressions basically in a clockwise direction. For the best run to New Zealand, it is crucial to study the weather charts, to spot the depressions, to interpret their speed and positions in advance, to stay on the north side for favorable westbound winds. Icebergs, freak waves, gales, and extreme cold made seamen name the area between 40 and 50 degrees latitude the Roaring Forties. On December 6th, the boat enters the Roaring Forties. The day's run, 200 miles. Second day in the Roaring Forties, the edge of a high-pressure area causes almost windless conditions, and there are 15 sail changes in an effort to keep the boat going. There are days with most varied weather conditions, from downpour and little wind to sudden squalls. Nutter loses miles to his competitors, as the Roaring Forties do not live up to their expectations. December 12. Phaser Finland is #1 on handicap. Atlantic Privateer 2, L'Esprit 3, Phillips Innovator 7. Then conditions improve, and the spinnaker goes up again. A couple of days with good winds proves what the Phillips Innovator is truly capable of. On December the 13th, at 52.36 degrees, she takes over the overall lead. L'Esprit drops from 1st to 5th. She had changed tactics and altered course to follow in the Innovator's track. The cat and mouse game is on. December 16. The sailing is now very fast and the Maxis are making the most of it. They have taken over 3 places among the first 5. Phillips Innovator alternates for the #1 position with NZI Enterprise, with the wind suddenly increasing to 45 knots. Esprit follows Innovator's course closer and closer, moving up to 3rd position again. Nauta enters calmer water, followed by snow, rain, frost and biting cold. The Maxis are surfing so fast that they've taken overall leadership, keeping Phillips Innovator in 3rd position. The Tasman Sea evidently slows down the Maxis and the fleet is drawing together again. With an average of 240 to 260 miles, Phillips Innovator recaptures the overall lead, followed by L'Esprit. Meanwhile, NZI and Atlantic Privateer are only some miles apart, as the New Zealand TV reports.
In the news tonight, first pictures of the Whitbread race leaders battling it out for line honours on the run into Auckland. Good evening, everyone. Hours away from Auckland, NZI Enterprise and Atlantic Privateer have been fighting it out up front for much of the way from Cape Town. But in the past 24 hours, they've been neck and neck.
Early last night, it was Atlantic Privateer that had the edge, 60 miles west of Cape Reinga and sailing in northwesterly winds of about 25 knots. But only 4 miles separated the American yacht from NZI Enterprise, and the gap was to narrow as the night wore on. By daybreak, they'd gone round the North Cape and the winds had turned to northerly, giving both boats a spinnaker run south. They were now 2 miles apart, incredibly close after 7,000 miles of sailing. Tonight, the leading boats are still reported to be neck and neck, about 70 miles north of Auckland. The winds are light and it could be any time after midnight before the first one crosses the finish line.
Here's to the boys in red, the crew of Lion New Zealand, as they complete the second leg of the Whitbread Round the World race.
Nearing New Zealand, Phillips Innovator, in very light wind, is hanging on to every bit of it in an effort to limit the loss of crucial time. Her lead on the fleet behind her dwindles because of dying winds, and she makes only 146 miles with 26 sail changes to catch whatever wind there is. Two tales from the logbook were scary. The first, in rough weather, in the middle of the night, an accidental jibe had broken the preventer line. The boom had again swept over the deck and catapulted the broken line, which then ripped off the satellite aerial and caused some more damage to the stern. We'd been close to demasting. The second, sailing with 3 reefs, again during the night. The ship suddenly came right up and tacked. Steering was impossible. The connection between steering chain and cable was gone. While the ship was held on course by the Genoa, the trouble was soon fixed. As a reflex, mainsail had been dropped and had been damaged, causing an hour's repair. Just before the finishing line, Phillips Innovator crosses the path of the first New Zealand 12-metre yacht training for the America's Cup. It looks like a near miss, but it is more like a tribute to Dutch achievement. The reception in Auckland is overwhelming. The crew may not realize it, but the welcome of these Maori dancers is usually reserved for royalty and high dignitaries. Rivals have become friends. Phillips Innovator sets out to welcome her regular sparring partner, Fazer Finland, to the New Zealand waters. Ultimately, Phillips Innovator gained about 24 hours on corrected time on her nearest rival, L'Esprit de Keep, which placed her first on handicap on this leg and gave her the overall lead on handicap.
Rise to the leader on handicap for legs 1 and 2. It's Phillips Innovator.
Now there is time for the crew to feast and rest a little. Work has an easy pace. The ship and all equipment is thoroughly checked and prepared for yet another stretch of roaring 40s. There is plenty of time to relax and to also do all kind of little things. before in sailing history have so many people displayed such wild enthusiasm on seeing the fleet off. Some 6,000 boats on the water, 60 planes and helicopters in the air, and 300,000 spectators on the shore see the 15 yachts battle their way through this madhouse. Now the world knows that the Kiwis are absolutely mad about sailing. Skipper and crew of the Phillips Innovator are determined to increase their lead on l'Esprit d'équipe, sailing the third leg of this race. Here are some rare shots of competitors on the open sea filming each other. It's Fazer Finland, Phillips Innovator's regular sparring partner. Skipper Nauter explains how this leg differs from the previous one. Basically, the same principles apply. Trying to get the wind at the north side of the depressions, but Cape Horn lies more to the south at 56 latitude. That means going that far south and running the risk of getting right into those depression areas, which could mean lousy sailing weather, missing out on favorable winds, and being surrounded by dangerous icebergs. February 19, Black Wednesday for the Kiwis. While every skipper is working out his strategic decisions, how far south to go for the shorter distance and hopefully the best winds, the radio reports that NZI Enterprise has lost her mast. A terrible blow to all of us, says Dirk Nauter. It makes him think about his own rigging, because they had had 4 days in a row of very hard sailing. Weather conditions soon worsen. The first iceberg sightings. Depressions with their westbound winds on the north side, in fact, move more southward than normal. Ships following the southerly course repeatedly go right through the middle of the low areas. Result, the famous gales, which makes yachts fly under spinnaker, are not there. The overall handicap positions make clear that the smaller boats do better in this type of weather. Number 1, Rukenor. 2, Equity and Law with Phillips Innovator number 3, and the first Maxi at 7th place. February 25, a sudden drop in the barometer, and they finally find the real Southern Ocean. Sailing for the big boys. The day's run, a record 304 miles, sailing with 2 reefs. Real fun never lasts, though. First, the blast reacher is blown out, and trying to hoist the 3.5 spinnaker in 40 knots wind, the spinnaker boom breaks. Now it is discovered that the booms, which were made in Auckland, are of lighter material than the previous ones. Reinforcement and repairs take place on the foredeck. The following days, the average varied tremendously from 274 to 187 miles, to 214, to 195, to 151, and back to 212, all in 4 days. While during previous days of heavy sailing, Nauta moved up to 3rd place. Esprit holds 1st place, only 75 miles behind him, too close for comfort. Rounding the notorious Cape Horn is, for Phillips Innovator, a leisure ride on a small lake with a light breeze. A disappointment to the crew. Nothing like the tales which make Cape Horn the scare of the seagoing nations. And that, while the more southerly yachts behind are facing 40 to 50 knot winds. Having rounded the Cape, northwesterly winds prevent Phillips Innovator from taking the rump line to Punta del Este. With impossible winds and much tacking, Nata fights his way to Uruguay, while the smaller ships behind him are cashing in on better weather conditions. Spectacular is the arrival of UBS Switzerland and Drum, with full sails racing to the finish line close to one another. There is special interest for pop star Simon Le Bon, co-owner of Drum, who sailed this leg as one of the crew. With 1.5 days to Punta, the wind dwindles, and eventually Nata reaches Punta through continuous tacking, arriving in the middle of the night for the second time. Punta del Este is a smart holiday resort with a superb yacht club. Many Argentines spend their leisure time here. The local Phillips organization has assisted Whitbread racing officials in providing facilities and accommodation for the fleet and their entourage, to such an extent that the Phillips Innovator office, situated right on the quay, sometimes looks like the official racing headquarters. The marina is lit underwater for this occasion by the Phillips Company.
Representante del Uruguay, Andrea López, Miss Uruguay, que esta noche, ¿qué está haciendo?
Bueno, estoy recibiendo a todos los tripulantes de Philip Innovator.
Phillips hosts several South American TV stations and take them out to show their viewers what life is like aboard an ocean racer.
Stops, these were holes. There was one big high before Cape Horn, about 1 week before Cape Horn.
Phillips Uruguay organizes several public events, and with the help of Derek Nauta and his crew, bring the Whitbread around the world race closer to the general public. For the final leg, Phillips Innovator go to Montevideo for an ultimate inspection. The ship is brought into top shape, and the crew is reduced by 1. Everything that could possibly be spared is left behind. Realizing he could not control the elements, Nauta has to accept that his lead-on handicap has been changed into a backlog of some 5 hours, and that with the 4th leg ahead, a tough job to recapture the #1 position from the new leader, L'Esprit d'Équipe. Nauta, sponsor Phillips, and the crew accept that gambles are in order to outwit L'Esprit d'Équipe. The prime aim will be to shake off this contender. With a new Kevlar Mylar mainsail in Genoa, the Phillips Innovator makes a perfect start for the final decisive leg. I have to outwit L'Esprit. Making a study of the doldrums in combination with the weather charts, Nauta says, I discovered that at the westerly edge of the doldrums, the belt with windless weather was narrowest. My strategy was to reach it fast, not changing course more to the east, be out of it fast, and then race clear of the fleet to the next tactical area, the Azores High. The hard northerly winds are tough on rigging and crew. On the 7th day out, L'Esprit d'Équipe leads on handicap, followed by Phillips Innovator, Phaser Finland #3, Equity and Law #4, Rukenaar TriStar 5, UBS Switzerland 6. Phillips Innovator sails hard flying a spinnaker whenever possible. But in the handicap ratings, this doesn't necessarily show up because Nata is sticking to a westerly course. Heading the fleet, he reaches the doldrums first, having dropped to 6th place overall. Luck is not with him. There is virtually no wind and continuous rain squalls. Averages drop from 229 to 99, from 126 to 68 miles per 24 hours. One crew member sarcastically wrote in the logbook, "New record, 10 miles in 24 hours." And that while the fleet in the wider area do have occasional winds. On the 4th day after the doldrums, the Phillips Innovator, covered with Sahara dust, picks up the trade wind and starts sailing again, moving up from 9th place to 5th and then 3rd. And then, near the Azores, Nata again runs into unfavorable winds. As entered in the logbook, even a sea turtle overtook us. When we'd had a day of 76 miles, we knew that our chances to win the race had gone up in smoke. But when it did begin to blow again, we were sailing so fast that we set ourselves a new target, beating Phaser for 2nd position. Phillips Innovator is now making averages of over 250 miles. We were in such a hurry that when the top lifting came off the spinnaker pole, we dropped the 1.5 spinnaker, repaired 2 small holes, and got the sail up again in exactly 8 minutes and 56 seconds. On the 34th day, at 05:10 GMT, May 12th, Phillips Innovator passed the Needles, famous landmark for all sailors approaching the Solent. The end of the race is in sight. After sailing 27,000 miles around the world without accidents or injuries to anyone, Derek Nata skippers the Phillips Innovator across the finish line at 08:15.25, beating Phaser Finland on handicap. The Whitbread, a round-the-world race, and the Phillips yacht. Again, it showed that the toughest ocean race in the world has lots of surprises for every competitor.
Hello, Joe.
Welcome, skipper. Congratulations.
Having hope for the ultimate honor of first place, being runner-up will make one try harder. While the Maxi UBS Switzerland was winner on line honors, beating Flyer's record time by more than 2 days, Esprit d'Equipe finishes as #1 on corrected time. The publicity generated by the Sportive Philips Innovator made her the absolute winner in a totally different class. Well worth it. Thanks to the Philips organization, Derek Nata and his crew.
Ja, då är vi tillbaka på Solderbanan i Belgien.